Good to go?
Yeah.
Oh, well, all right then. My apologies. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us today, talking through our webinar of the importance of disability of insurance. Those of you that don't know me, my name is Nick Scott. I'm the Director of Client Services here at Apex. With me to my left, or your right on the screen, I have Nate Harmon and I have Luke Zinni with me with One America. They will be the individuals that will be taking us through the PowerPoint today and talking about the importance of disability. A few webinar housekeeping items. Those of you who've done this with us before have seen this. All attendees will be in listen-only mode for the duration of the webinar. The webinar will be roughly anywhere 25 to 30 minutes. For questions or comments, use the chat box located in that right-hand side of your webinar screen, as well as presentation slides and resources can be downloaded on the right-hand side of that webinar screen as well. So to kick us off, I'm going to I'm going to pass it over to Luke Zinni with One America, and go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Nick. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. As Nick mentioned, we're going to talk a lot today about the importance of disability. Our hope today is that you come away from this with a stronger knowledge of what benefits are out there in the disability space, that you're comfortable going to your contacts at your company on if you have questions about claims, benefits, anything. We want this to be informative for you all. And again, if there are questions that come up, there will be some time at the end here where you will have a platform to ask those. So without further ado, we'll get started. And again, this is going to be pretty high level with some applicable examples of some of the benefits that you see today in the marketplace. So what is disability insurance and how does it differ from other types of insurance? Disability insurance is a type of insurance that provides income replacement if you are unable to work due to a disabling injury or illness. It's designed to protect your earning capacity, ensuring you can still receive a portion of your income while you recover if you are permanently unable to return to work. So what are some key features of disability insurance? Income protection. It pays a portion, typically 50 to 70% of your salary during the period you're disabled. What are some eligibility triggers? Benefits are paid if a medical condition prevents you from working either in your own occupation or any occupation, depending on policy terms. And we'll get in to a little bit more of that over the next couple of slides. What are some types of disability? You have short-term disability. This typically covers disabilities lasting from a few weeks to up to about 6 months. And long-term disability kicks in after STD ends and may last for years until retirement age. There are a couple other types of disability that's out there. There's a unique product called one lump sum disability. There's obviously individual disability policies as well. We'll touch primarily on group policies today in this presentation, but just know that there are lots of options out there for you. So, why might someone consider purchasing disability insurance even if they are currently healthy? Someone might consider purchasing disability insurance if they're healthy for several important reasons. Again, as we mentioned before, income protection. Disability insurance provides a safety net if you're unable to work due to injury or illness. Even healthy individuals can become disabled unexpectedly through accidents or sudden health conditions. Lower premiums while healthy. Premiums are typically lower when you're young and healthy. Waiting until after a health issue arises can make insurance more expensive or result possibly in a denial of coverage. And again, unexpected events happen. Most disabilities are caused by illnesses, not accidents, and many are not predictable. You may not see it coming, and recovery times can be long. Oftentimes, employer coverage, it may or may not be always adequate. If you rely solely on employer-provided coverage, it might not be enough or might not follow you if you change jobs. Individual policies are more often comprehensive, and portable protection is available for those policies as well. So that's actually something I would encourage you to think about when you're reviewing your own policy with your company is, look at the fine print there. Are those policies portable? Are they convertible? What happens when you leave the company or if a status in your employment changes? These are all things just to consider to be on the lookout and be ready and prepared if a disabling event does happen. Long-term consequences. A disability can last months or even years. Without insurance, the financial impact can be devastating and drain savings or possibly even retirement funds. So what are some of the key differences between short and long-term disability insurance? Short-term disability, other words known as STD, covers disabilities for a shorter duration, typically 3 to 6 months, sometimes up to 1 year. One of the more common disabling conditions you see in the short-term disability space is pregnancy. Again, that is typically a covered condition. Again, there are certain exclusions that do apply there, but again, pregnancy and maternity are very common short-term disability claims. Long-term disability covers disabilities that last longer than the STD period, often from 2 years up to your retirement age. What are some other things here? The waiting period, in other words, known as the elimination period. The STD has a much shorter waiting period, usually 0 to 14 days after the injury or illness. And the LTD has a longer waiting period, typically 90 to 180 days, and often begins after STD benefits expire. So I'd like to touch on the elimination period quickly here and what that means. Let's say you have in your policy a 7-7 elimination period. The elimination period is the time that you must satisfy until benefits are payable. So if you have a 7-7 elimination period and you satisfy the terms of your policy, you would start to receive benefits on the 8th day. So again, some common benefit amounts. STD typically replaces 60 to 70% of your salary. LTD often replaces 50 to 60% of your salary, depending on the plan. And again, these are just industry standards. Your policy might have slightly less of a percentage of your earnings covered or slightly more, again, but those are the industry. So, what factors typically determine the cost of disability insurance premiums? There are several key factors. Some include your occupation. Riskier jobs, for example, construction or manual labor, lead to higher premiums due to increased likelihood of disability. Professional and white-collar jobs usually result in much lower premiums. Your age is a significant factor. The older you are when purchasing the policy, the higher the premium. Disability risk does tend to increase with age. Health and medical history. Pre-existing conditions or poor health can lead to higher premium or exclusions. And some insurers may require a medical exam. Your gender as well. Women often pay higher premiums because statistically they file more disability claims and for longer durations. Continuing from the previous slide, the benefit amount and duration. Higher monthly benefits and longer benefit periods, for example, to age 65 versus 2 years, increase the cost. And that, is a very good kind of segue here when you are looking to establish an employer paid plan or a voluntary plan. It's important to consider the demographics of your company. For example, let's say you tend to have a lot of younger folks in your company. That might make sense to have a richer benefit duration to say a Social Security full retirement age, because you have a lot of employees who have a lot of working years remaining. And the risk there, the longer you work, the more likely that a disabling event might happen, versus a group that has a slightly older age demographic. You might already have some folks who are starting to see Social Security benefits. So maybe a group like that might make sense to have a shorter benefit duration of 2 or maybe 5 years. So again, just all things to consider as you're evaluating plans in general. So again, elimination periods play a big factor in this as well. The longer you agree to wait before benefits begin, for example, 90 versus 30 days, the lower the premium. Policy types and riders. Own occupation versus any occupation. Own occupation coverage costs more but provides broader protection. Riders like cost of living adjustments, residual disability, or future purchase options add to the cost as well. Obviously, lifestyle factors. Smoking, dangerous hobbies like skydiving, or frequent travel to risky areas can increase premiums. And your state of residence, believe it or not, also impacts a lot of things. The regulations and cost of living in your state can also affect premium rates. So how does disability insurance define a qualifying disability and what conditions are commonly covered? The definition depends on the type of policy you have, but generally falls into two broad categories. Your own occupation disability definition is one. So you're considered disabled if you can't perform material duties of your own job, the one that you were trained for. For example, a surgeon who develops hand tremors may qualify even if they can do other types of works. Another type of occupation where you see the own occupation disability definition pretty significantly is the lawyer occupation, where they have very specific duties and day-to-day and highly trained individuals. Any occupation disability, you're only considered disabled if you can't perform any job that you're reasonably suited for by education, training, or experience. This definition is stricter and harder to qualify for. Partial and residual disability. Some policies cover partial disability if you can work part-time or at reduced capacity but suffer an income loss. And again, we've talked elimination period a lot here so far, but most policies require that the disability last a minimum period, often 30, 60, or 90 days before benefits begin. I'm not going to go through this line by line here, but this slide here does a great job giving you a side-by-side on employer-sponsored disability insurance versus private individual disability insurance. And as far as the eligibility, costs, whether you can bring the coverage with you if something happens to your employment. One of the things I do like to touch on specifically for here on the benefit of group plans is the cost. The large majority of group plans compared to an individual plan will offer much more affordable benefits that tend to be richer in nature as well. The other big item I like to touch on this slide is the underwriting that goes into these products as well. On the group platform, there is usually no medical exam required for the group products, whereas on the individual side of things, again, that's not to discount the importance of possibly looking at an individual policy, but typically it is much harder to qualify for an individual policy simply because there's medical underwriting and sometimes a physical exam is required for that as well. So again, this slide is there more just to give you a little bit of an idea on some of the differences between a group plan versus an individual plan. Here are some common misconceptions and questions that kind of arise as far as, do I really need disability or not? So let's kind of go through some of these and the reasons on why it might make sense to consider purchasing the disability coverage. One is, I'm young and healthy and I don't need it. The reality is, disabilities are often caused by accidents, injuries, or unexpected illnesses that can happen at any age. In fact, many long-term disability claims are due to things like cancer, back injuries, or mental health conditions, not just age-related issues. My employer's coverage is not enough. The reality, employer-sponsored plans often cover only a portion of your income, usually 40 to 60%, may not include bonuses or commissions, and may not be portable if you change jobs. It's too expensive. What's the reality? Premiums are usually actually a small percentage of your income, often 1 to 3%, especially if you buy coverage when you're young and healthy. Plus, the financial protection can far outweigh the cost if you ever need it. Again, the takeaway is look at disability insurance as just that. It's protection for your paycheck. You want to be prepared to make sure that you can take care of your family should an injury or illness or disabling condition apply. And for the relative lack of expense compared to your overall paycheck, we can't stress enough the importance of making sure you truly evaluate if you need that coverage or not. Another one, disability insurance is only for catastrophic events. What's the reality here? Many claims involve partial or short-term disabilities where people can't work at full capacity but aren't completely disabled. Policies can provide benefits even for these less severe situations, depending on the terms. Workers' compensation or Social Security will cover me. That's another one. What's the reality here? Workers' comp only covers work-related injuries, which account for a small percentage of disabilities. Social Security disability insurance has strict qualifications and may not cover as much income as you expect. And it often takes months or even years to be approved. So what's the last one here on this slide? I have life insurance. I don't need disability insurance. The reality here is life insurance helps your dependents after death. Disability insurance protects your income while you're still alive, but unable to work. They serve two very different purposes. So again, the big takeaway on this slide is we encourage you to look at your own personal situation, your family situation. If there are people in your immediate family who depend on you for your income, again, we can't stress enough the importance of making that informed decision if you need the disability insurance or not. And again, the reality is it may not be for everybody, but if you can afford it and you've got family that depend and count on you, we can't stress enough to make an important and educated decision surrounding that. So what medical conditions or circumstances would qualify me for disability plans under my current plan? Some common qualifying medical conditions include, let's talk physical first, musculoskeletal disorders. For example, back injuries, arthritis, herniated discs, neurological disorders, multiple sclerosis, epilepsy, stroke, cardiovascular diseases, heart attack, heart failure, cancer, chronic pain or fatigue syndromes, fibromyalgia, accidental injuries, fractures, traumatic brain injuries. One of the items I do like to point out here too, and again, every policy is different, but there are some policies that do have limited provisions for special conditions. So again, if this is something that impacts you, impacts somebody close to you, I do encourage you to review your policy pretty in detail on some of the specific conditions, as some insurers do treat some of those conditions in particular a little bit differently than others. We won't get into the specifics there. I just encourage you to make sure you read your policy in depth when it comes to specific conditions. Mental health conditions are covered as well. Major depression, anxiety disorders, bipolar disorder, PTSD. Again, similar to the above, some plans do limit mental health claims to 12 to 24 months. So again, we encourage you to take a deep dive into your policy. Make sure you're comfortable with everything your employer-sponsored plan has to offer for you, whether it be employer paid or voluntary, and just make sure you know that the ins and outs of some of these clauses in these contracts, because the last thing you want is, unfortunately, a claim situation does come up and you feel uninformed. So again, we encourage you to reach out to your broker partner at Apex, your carrier partners. Everybody is here to help you and make sure you feel comfortable navigating the entire process. Again, to kind of conclude here from a material standpoint, this here is from your all's lens on the employee level. Again, just some questions to think about as you navigate the benefits landscape. Do I fully understand what disability insurance covers through my employer and how it differs from health or life insurance? If I were unable to work due to illness or injury, how long could I manage financially before disability insurance benefits begin? Does my employer offer both short-term and long-term disability insurance? What are the key differences in coverage? We touched a little bit on that here in our presentation today. How much of my paycheck would be replaced if I file a claim under my employer's disability insurance plan? What is the waiting period, elimination period before benefits begin? How should I prepare for that financially? One of the things I want to kind of go back on a little bit here, we talk about common elimination periods. If you have an employer-sponsored plan here and you have some possible pregnancy claims that might be coming up, we encourage you to contact your HR team and your broker partners. Let's see if they can help expedite those claims, because oftentimes maternity claims have slightly different parameters than a more traditional claim, and there are systems in place with a lot of companies that you work with who might be able to help expedite those types of claims for you, because we all know that during a pregnancy there are a lot of things going on in that family's life, and if an insurance company and your broker partner can make that easier for you, let's certainly make sure we take advantage of that as well. Can I supplement my employer provided disability insurance with a private policy if I want additional coverage? How does having disability insurance support my long-term financial stability and peace of mind? Another big one to think of. We touched on this a little bit too. What are some common misconceptions employees have about using disability insurance or qualifying for it? Hopefully those 5 or 6 questions we put up there made you think a little bit differently about that and demonstrates the need for that coverage. And finally, do I know where to go, right? If I have a question, do I know who to go to on my HR team? Does my benefits portal have readily available information for me? If I have questions or want to review the details of my policy. So again, know that everybody here, certainly on this meeting here, is in your corner to help you navigate the tricky landscape of the benefit space. And we hope this was beneficial for you all, and you feel a little bit more comfortable on how especially short and long-term disability plans work. So that's it for us from a presentation standpoint. I don't know if we've got any questions, or we really appreciate everybody's time in joining, and thank you again.
Any questions?
Okay.
But you can always let them know that we'll follow up.
Sure.
So can they submit questions in if they need to, and then
Yep.
we can follow up. So if you still have questions or later on you have questions, feel free to submit those. We'll gather those together. We'll work with Luke and Nate. And Nate, unfortunately, you didn't get to say too much today, did you? But we'll gather them, and we will get those out to you as soon as those come in. So again, thank you for your time, everyone, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks, everybody.